Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tuesday's episode of Trending, brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. If you head over to shop.iconic.com and use the code TRENDING, you get 10% off. Right, I'm going to kick off with a tweet. If it's called a tweet now, is it a tweet now or is it just a post? Either way, it was posted on X, formerly Twitter, by Robert Fico, who is the president of Slovakia. Now, this is how it reads. Phone call with the leadership of the World Health Organization. A few minutes ago, I received a phone call from the Director General of the WHO, Tedros something Ghebreyesus, I can never say his middle name, who asked me for the government of the Slovak Republic to change its position and not request a vote on the pandemic agreement, which is scheduled to take place later this evening. I reiterated that the Slovak delegation is bound by the instruction of the Slovak government to request a vote on the pandemic agreement. The Prime Minister of the Slovak Republic expresses surprise that there are efforts to avoid a fundamental democratic institution, a vote. If a vote does take place, the Slovak delegation has been instructed not to support the pandemic agreement. That's why you're getting a phone call, mate. Not to support the pandemic agreement as it undermines the principle of sovereignty of member states and disproportionately interferes with the sphere of human rights. Absolutely it does, because that's what it's meant to do. The WHO are absolutely desperate. They are desperate to get the pandemic treaty and the amendments as well to other existing legislation through. Now, it will give the WHO, which is unelected, by the way. I didn't vote for Tedros, and neither did you. I can barely say his name. He's also not a medical doctor either. It just says doctor because it makes it sound better. It will give them powers over sovereign nations to impose lockdowns, quarantines, compulsory vaccinations should another Rona rear its manufactured head. What it means, and this is why they're desperate, you see, what you desperately don't want if you want complete control over everything is a good example elsewhere that goes against what you're doing, because then the people can look at it. So if you think about COVID, which I do believe in certain ways was a bit of a test run, it was to check just how compliant the population would be. And unfortunately, as a human race, we let ourselves down quite badly. They pretty much controlled almost everything, but not quite, the WHO. So most governments around the world took the word of the WHO as gospel and they followed the WHO, which, by the way, is Bill Gates. Tedros is just a front man. Guy's a moron. All the social media companies, all the media outlets, mainstream media outlets, they all got their information from the WHO. If the WHO said something, it doesn't matter if they're lying. If you say the opposite, even if what you were saying was true, which it was throughout COVID, you still got banned off social media or shadow banned or posts deleted or hidden and all that sort of stuff, right? So they pretty much ruled the show, but not quite, because you had your Tanzanias and you had your Swedens. You had examples that other people that were in lockdown could look at and go, well, hang on a minute. And even if you take the United Kingdom, you had England, because in no small part down to the huge protest movement in England, they lifted restrictions way before they lifted them in Scotland and way before they lifted them in Wales, which were far more draconian under obviously the Welsh Assembly and under the SNP up in Scotland. They were, a lot more draconian. So people in Scotland and people in Wales were looking at England. England was doing great. Everyone's in the pub having a laugh. And so that provided an example. They can't possibly have an example. So what they need to do is they need to close all the doors. What you will find, though, and this is interesting because bearing in mind, this pandemic treaty has not gone through yet Tedros is already trying to circumvent democracy. He's going directly to a president. And he won't be the only one. Fico will just be the only one that's talking about it. He's going all the way to prime ministers and presidents and whatever, trying to make sure it goes through. He's trying to get around their normal democratic, if we live in a democratic world, let's be honest, probably not. But there's still probably got remnants of democracy here and there. You can still find them. He's still trying to, he's not even in the door yet he's still trying to get around it. So imagine what the WHO and what Tedros and Bill Gates and all these others will be doing in terms of overruling sovereign nations once they've got their foot firmly in the door. And I'll tell you what, another thing, they're not doing this for no reason. They're not desperate to get this pandemic preparedness treaty in and through and signed on the dotted line and all those powers so that they can go, cool, we've got all those powers now. Awesome, cool, right. Let's watch Bargain Hunt. That's not why they're going to do it. You will find, I can almost guarantee it, that as soon as this whole thing goes through and they've got all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, oh no, we've got a health emergency. Oh, have you? I bet you have. Guarantee it. And then what they'll do is then they'll try and push for COVID, but Mark II. And again, I always hark on about it, but when they tell you what they are and who they are, believe them. So when Bill Gates sat there and said the next one will get attention next time and had his little snigger with his ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife, he meant it. Now, I guess this next story, it kind of ties into it because actually we saw throughout COVID how, people got that little bit of power. Never had power before, got bullied in high school, never got to be the prefect at high school. Oh, now I've got a little bit of power. I've got a fancy dress outfit on. I've got a high-vis vest. Now suddenly I can be an arsehole to everyone. And that is the way that the police have been moving for a very, very long time. So this is a story from the Daily Mail. It comes with a video attached, which is quite disturbing to watch. Moment, disabled 92-year-old is pepper sprayed, tasered, and hit with a baton by police before dying 3 weeks later after he threatened care home staff with a knife. Now, knife is putting a little of hundreds of thousands and sprinkles on it when you read further down the story. A disabled man was pepper sprayed, tasered, and hit with a baton by police officers responding to a call at his care home, a court heard. One-legged Donald Burgess was allegedly assaulted by PC Smith. Well, he wasn't allegedly. There's a video. You can watch it. By PC Stephen Smith and PC Rachel Comotto at the home in St Leonards-on-Sea, East Sussex, in June 2022. So I suppose June 2022, we were still kind of around the madness phase within care homes and stuff like that because of the whole Rona nonsense. Prosecutors claim the officers used unjustified and unlawful force. Well, yes, they did. Within seconds of entering the wheelchair-bound pensioner's room. Smith, 51, denies 2 counts of assault by using, it says Pava spray, I'm assuming that's a brand of pepper spray, Pava spray, and a baton. And Komoto denies 1 charge of assaulting by discharging her taser. Staff had called the police after Mr. Burgess was seen poking a care worker in the stomach with a knife. That sounds pretty bad. And flicking food at her. Less bad. Prosecutor Paul Jervis KC said Mr. Burgess was sitting in his wheelchair holding a small serrated cutlery knife. So, you know what I mean? He's not holding a Bowie knife or a sword when the officers entered the room. Now, the story then goes on to explain the fact that both the police officers came in. They didn't talk to the care staff. They didn't even talk to him. They came straight in with a threatening, if you don't give me that knife, I'm going to taser you, bosh. And then he gets smacked over the head with a baton and pepper spray. So they've gone for the hat trick on the 92-year-old with one leg. Now, the police have been going this way for quite a long time, and it's something that we've observed, we've spoke about, and my dad's massively spoken about it, and he's written about it in his books, where you've gone from this sort of, friendly neighborhood copper. Everyone knew the copper's name. He knew most people's names, or she knew most people's names. And, you'd say hello to him in the street. How are you? Good morning. How are the kids? Yeah, cool, thanks. Nice one. It was very much like that. And not just in small towns. I mean, I grew up in a small town on the Isle of Wight, probably about 25,000 people. But and obviously villages are like that. But also cities were like that, because you would have your neighborhood Bobby that would police a certain area, maybe an estate or whatever. And so everyone would kind of know the copper, and they tend to be quite friendly. And you could have a conversation, and there might be a little bit of grey area applied to certain things. It was the same with traffic wardens. You come back to your car, and they'd be stood there, and they go, time to call this, go on, off you go. Not like that anymore. Nope, they've already done you. And so what they've done is they've gradually replaced the neighborhood copper with a psychopath, right? Now, that is a generalization. There's still a lot of decent coppers out there, but they're being phased out. They're either being phased out by being fired by, because they've said the wrong thing, and they've not gone along with political correctness and the woke agenda and all that sort of stuff, so they're getting phased out. Or, as happened a hell of a lot during Rona, they've taken early retirement and quit because they can't do it anymore. Can't be doing with this. This isn't what I signed up for. I didn't sign up to be a foot soldier of the state. I signed up to serve the people of my neighborhood. I got emails from lots of different police officers, from prison officers, from nurses throughout COVID. A lot of them, stayed on and tried to fight for a long time. And then in the end went, do you know what, I'm out. I didn't sign up for this. So who replaces them? Well, the nut job. So if you actively recruit psychopaths, it ain't going to take long when the old neighborhood coppers either quit or retire because, age. And then they gradually get replaced by these people. And then what you find is that suddenly, in a very short period of time, maybe 10, 15 years, your entire police force, or at least an overwhelming majority of your police force, enough of your police force to kind of push essentially this policy, are psychopathic. And, I can't help but think that's not an accident. Because the way that the country's going, the way that Europe's going, the way the world's going, they know they're going to get civil unrest at some point. If you push people to the point of they've got nothing left to lose, which is what is happening, particularly in the UK, where everything is getting more and more expensive. People are losing their jobs, being replaced by AI, and all this kind of stuff. People are going to end up at a point of desperation. And when people are desperate, that's when they stand up because they've got nothing left to lose. That whole fear of, well, if I stand up, I might lose my job. Well, you've already lost your job, mate. Oh, well, if I stand up, neighbours might judge me or the police might come round and I might get my collar felt. Well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because you lost everything anyway, mate. And at that point, people stand up and they're preparing for that. And there's a conversation as to why so many fighting age men are being allowed into this country. Call me a conspiracy theorist. Because they don't want people that are sympathetic to the population. They don't want coppers to come out when people are kicking off at the state and going, look, I understand how you feel. I can relate. In fact, I'll stand alongside you, mate. They don't want that. That's the worst nightmare. They want idiots and foot soldiers, psychopaths. And to be fair, they're looking more militarized anyway, especially in America. You look at, is that a police officer? Or is that, do you know what I mean? Judge Dredd. Moving on. Okay, so this story is about Ozempic. We've spoke about Ozempic quite a lot on the show, particularly on the episodes that me and my brother Jamie have done together. This Sharon Osbourne, so this couldn't happen to a nicer person. Sharon Osbourne regrets taking Ozempic and has been advised to sue the company. She's not got enough money. Friends are urging Sharon Osbourne to take action against the manufacturers of the drug. Sharon, a former bulimic who's always struggled with her body image, started using the weight loss injection Ozempic at the start of 2023 and lost more than 4 stone in months. I mean, I'm not a fan of Sharon Osbourne. I'm trying to, know a hell of a lot about her in terms of her weight issues and stuff like that. But from what I can recall, I don't think she had 4 stone to lose, did she? It's not like it was, she was morbidly obese. She confessed to American broadcaster Howard Stern, another nice guy, saying it's not a sin to use Ozempic if you have a weight problem. So why not talk about it? Indeed, let's talk about it. But a year after coming off the medication, she's been left struggling to eat and today barely weighs 7 stone, which is far too thin for her 5'2" frame. 7 stone. Jeez. I've made paper aeroplanes that weighed more than that. Does she wish she'd never touched Ozempic? Yes. Okay, well, this is the same Ozempic, which has been shown to have caused dreadful health issues across the world, in the United Kingdom as well, and even deaths, with dozens of deaths being attributed to the drug in the United Kingdom alone. Bear in mind, they're just the ones that you know about. They're just the ones that they are willing to admit to. Because all of these pharmaceutical industries, as we saw during Rona, are all massively protected. It's also the same drug that Dr. Hillary, remember that guy from during the Rona, pushing all the jabs on everyone, pushing the masks on everyone, pushing the lockdowns on everyone. Horrible, horrible man, if you can call him a man. It's the same drug. He went on national TV last week and promoted and saying it cuts the chances of cancer by 50%. So not even using it as a weight loss issue in this. It's in terms of, for aesthetics, but he's pushing it as the fact that if you take Ozempic, it can cut the chances of cancer by 50%. Now, bearing in mind, we get fact-checked all the time. We get accused of being granny killers and spreading dangerous misinformation. Yet ghouls like Dr. Hillary and all the others like him, because he's not the only one that are on the cult pharmaceutical payroll, They're free to promote their dangerous nonsense to millions of people every single day. So I can sit here, I don't know how many people I'm talking to now, 40,000 maybe all in. This guy's talking to millions of people every single day promoting that. So how many people that have lost loved ones through cancer? I've lost relatives through cancer, lost friends through cancer. So if you've got cancer in your family, you've lost friends and relatives, like I say, how many people have heard Dr. Hillary say it will cut your chances of cancer by 50% and have got straight on the phone to the GP? I would imagine quite a few. And how many of them, when you're talking percentages, how many of them are then going to have injuries and potentially even death from taking the Ozempic that the doctor's just going to hand out like confetti, no doubt because they get a kickback, because that's how it works. Honestly. And this is what happens when justice isn't served. So people like Dr. Hillary and many others, like I say, Ted Ross being one of them we mentioned earlier, they got away with what they did during the Rona. And because they got away with it, they're free to continue to do it now. And people get annoyed. Oh, he's still going on about the Rona. Yeah, because nothing's ever been done about it. What they did to us for years, the amount of people they killed, the lives they destroyed, mentally destroyed, the amount of suicides, the amount of drug addiction, the amount of alcoholism, the amount of domestic violence, the amount of abused children. Well, we've got to shut up about it now, have we? Not a chance, mate. Not a chance. Moving on, but not really. Pfizer signs licensing deal worth $6 billion with China's 3S Bio for a cancer drug. Pfizer has signed a $6 billion licensing agreement with 3S Bio Inc. to develop a drug aimed at treating certain cancers. The drug candidate is being tested for non-small-celled lung cancer, metastatic colorectal cancer, I've never even heard of that, and gynecological tumours in China. 3S Bio plans to start a phase 3 trial this year, and the drug has received FDA clearance. Of course it has, for its investigational new drug application. The agreement grants Pfizer a global license excluding China for the drug, with a potential option for commercialization rights in China. Well, of course they'll get it because Pfizer get what they want. Pfizer will manufacture the drug in North Carolina and Kansas and plans a $100 million equity investment in 3S Bio. Again, it's what happens when no justice is served. So Pfizer has the right to go and destroy people's lives and kill thousands upon thousands and thousands of people. And what do they get? Well, they get rewarded with billions of dollars, obviously, because that's how it works. Cancers have exploded since 2020. Heart disease has exploded since 2020. We spoke about that on yesterday's show, on the afternoon episode of Trending. They've exploded across the world after the mRNA poison was chucked into millions of people. Well, billions of people, if you believe their statistics. People were gaslit, threatened with being sacked. Also that they would take something. Then the cancer explodes, and then what's happened is they're not been punished for it. They've not been hauled over the coals and fined and whatever else you receive if you break the rules in terms of foods, drinks, pharmaceuticals, where you kill people or whatever. Nah, they've been rewarded. They've been rewarded with billions of dollars, right? So they can develop another mRNA drug to treat the explosion of cancers that are in no small part caused by the last mRNA drug that they received billions upon billions of dollars to produce. It's just like the circle. It goes on and on. Honestly, can't make it up. And unfortunately, you don't have to. That's what happens. It's what happens when you don't hold people to account. It's what happens when you tell people to shut up for keep going on about Rona. Oh, God, he's going on about it again. Change the record, man. Yeah, how about we don't change the record, mate? How about we turn it up? Right, final story today, because these ones have been a bit neg-nelly and I found myself losing my rag. A British ultra-endurance athlete has broken the world record for running across the width of Australia after a grueling 35-day journey. William Gooch, 31, started the 2,361-mile run from Cottesloe Beach in Perth on the 15th of April and finished on Monday afternoon at Australia's iconic Bondi Beach. His father was by his side. Originally from Bedfordshire in England, George ran the equivalent of 2.5 marathons, about 100k, every single day. Well, he's a total maniac. But well done. Well done, mate. Well done, William. It goes to show as well, as much as that is lunacy, it goes to show what people are capable of if they put their mind to something, if you believe in something enough. Incredible achievement. Well done, mate. But that is mental. That is mental. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Trending. As always, it was brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. If you head over to shop.iconic.com, use the code Trending, you get 10% off. Have a great day. Take it easy. Bye.